All right, what's going on, y'all, man? So we got some fire content for today, man. Let's talk about Joel Klatt. Top 5 Big Ten games in 2025. I did a video on this saying about the week schedule. Y'all came for me in all of my videos. It's okay. I love it, man. It means I'm doing something right if I got some fans coming for me. So, yeah, man, let's talk about it. Like, the top games. And like I said, I felt like, for the most part, like you look at Oregon's schedule, for the most part, cupcake. You know what I'm saying? I felt like the same thing for Michigan, cupcake, you know. Now, some of them were good. Like, I thought UCLA, USC, they had better schedules than compared to maybe some of the other ones. But there are some big-time games, man. So let's break them down. All right, let's start with Ohio State, Michigan, man. I mean, bro, that rivalry writes itself. Like, Michigan has dominated this series in recent memory. When you think about it, like, especially this year, they had, like, 4 or 5 different quarterbacks. Alex Ruggieri just hit the transfer portal, right? Davis Warren's in and out. One of their quarterbacks retired. Like, they've had so much going on at Michigan at quarterback spot, which is why they push so hard to land Bryce Underwood and keep him home and keep him close to Michigan. Makes a lot of sense. But they still beat them, right? Now, it was a defensive game, still came out on top. You can't blame Ohio State defense. They did what they were supposed to do. They forced some stops, turnovers inside the red zone, and things like that. But still, couldn't win. You know what I'm saying? So the rivalry is the rivalry, man. It don't matter. Like, no matter if Ohio State has more talent, doesn't matter if Michigan has more talent. Like, it always delivers, man. It delivered again this year. So, obviously, that's every year, end of the year, right after Thanksgiving. That's the go-to game. I don't care what anybody says. Iron Bowl is great. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, Georgia Tech is good. Starting to kind of get that muster around that rivalry again. You know what I'm saying? That's a pretty good one, Texas A&M. But that is the game. Next up, and this is what I love, like, schedule these type of games, bro. Texas, Ohio State to start the year, yes. You know what I'm saying? Yes, like this is what we want to see. Now, there's other big SEC games we'll talk about later. You know what I'm saying, as far as scheduling. I think I've seen, like, Alabama's playing Florida State. That'll be a good one. I think it's LSU, maybe Clemson. Those are some big-time games as well. But this one right here, Texas, Ohio State, I'm super excited for, man. It'll be the start of the era of Arch Manning. There's been some reports that saying that, you know, they kind of hoping Quinn Ewers goes to the league. They're ready to start the Arch Manning era there in Texas. And like I said, he'll have to make a decision if he wants to go to the league or get another year under his belt. But if he does, he's probably going to hit the portal. But you're not going to hear nothing about that right now because he's a starting quarterback, and they are in the college football playoff as well and in national contention regardless. Got Clemson, they got to play next Friday. You know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, that's going to be a game. Arch Manning era officially starts for Texas. I doubt if Quinn Ewers is back. And they go against Ohio State and what they got there with the Buckeyes. Got to see what happens with, obviously, Will Howard and things like that, if he comes back or if he transfers or whatever he decides to do. But that'll always be a major matchup, and I love that it's at the beginning of the schedule. Can't get no better than that. Next up, another really good one. This was the Big Ten Championship this year, 45-37 win for, obviously, Oregon. They did what they were supposed to do. There was balling in that one. Tej Johnson came up big. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel had another big-time game. Jordan James defensively. Penn State was doing anything. Abdul Carter, see what he was able to do. Now, he probably won't be on the team next year, but just how great he is as far as probably going to the league. But Penn State got a good roster. Drew Aller continue to come on, continue to have a really good year. You know what I'm saying? So that's going to be another big-time game. Oregon, Penn State. Can't wait to see who comes out in that one. That is one of the best games next year. Also, you got another one. Now, this past year, Ohio State went to Penn State, and they put it on them. You know what I'm saying? They flat out did. Like, they didn't have any answers in the second half. They couldn't convert on goal line situations. They went for it on 4th and goal. Didn't matter. Couldn't get it going. Now, we'll see. This year, I felt like that game disappointed just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You wanted to see Ohio State maybe tested a little bit more. But, you know, they really wasn't. They ran away with that game. Great plays defensively by the secondary. Great plays offensively as well. Will Howard had a pretty good game in that one. But we'll see what kind of happens between those two teams, obviously, as the rosters kind of go through new changes. But that'll be another primetime game between two really good teams in the Big Ten. Next up, this is another interesting one. Now, when I talked about it earlier, I was like, got to see what happens, you know what I'm saying, as far as with Oklahoma. Jackson Arnold's in the portal. He's likely going to go, I think they're saying, like, Auburn. He's going to go to the SEC school from what they're saying. We'll find out what happens there. But, you know, do you go back to that true freshman, Hawkins, who struggled a little bit this year? You know, are you going to bring in a portal guy potentially? Because if you were Brent Venables, you're in a situation you got to win now. You know what I'm saying? So what's going to kind of happen there with them? Now, you had some pretty good defensive pieces this year. Some guys that made all SEC, you know, based off what they were able to do. So defensively, you played a little bit better, you know, probably than last year or in 2023. But the thing you got to figure out is your offense. You know, that offense hasn't been humming for a while. Now, when it was Lincoln Riley, They had a great offense, no defense. This defense is better now, but the offense has kind of been disappointing, right? Not being able to protect, not being able to block well, struggling in other parts and running the football and things like that. But then you look at Michigan, same thing. What will this new era of Michigan look like, right? Obviously under their new head coach and what he can do, because they struggled, you know what I'm saying, this year. But, you know, nonetheless, for Sharon Moore, it's like, hey, we beat our rival, though. We beat Ohio State. This is a perennial NCAA champion or a perennial NCAA contender, I should say. You know what I'm saying? So we had a terrible year or awful year, but in the grand scheme, did it really matter? Nah, because we did what we were supposed to do and we beat our rival regardless. They were more talented than us and have more experience. It ain't matter. We still came out on top. So it'll be an interesting game between those two, just seeing the new eras, who's going to be at quarterback for both. You know, will Michigan hit another guy in the portal? I think they had a guy hit the portal. Obviously talking about Alex Warren. You know, they lost a couple of recruits, but I was able to get Bryce Underwood. But who's going to be – that's the biggest question in 2025 for Michigan. Who will be the starting quarterback in 2025? We're going to have to find out. And then for Oklahoma, can they get the offense figured out? Those are kind of two questions. But I 100% agree with Joel Klatt. These are the best Big Ten games, top 5 games. Hey, Texas versus Ohio State can't get better than that. Obviously, Ohio State, Michigan, that writes itself. Oregon and Penn State, that was a thriller in the Big Ten championship game. Penn State, Ohio State, can that one be a better game next year than it was compared to this year? And then Michigan versus Oklahoma. How good will Oklahoma be in Michigan in 2025?